explain to you guys how I sew my pointe shoes. I know I do a lot of teaching, and a lot of the kids that I teach don't know how to sew their pointe shoes, or their moms sew their pointe shoes for them, which I don't really recommend, because I think you should be in charge of your own shoes, so that way if anything falls off, then you're the only one to blame. But a lot of people don't really know how to sew them and sew them effectively, and some people are new, so I will explain. These ones are totally mush, but I'll show you how I actually do a square when I sew my elastic on the back, and I only cut my ribbons once, so that it's actually underneath my ankle so that these parts don't pop off, and I also sew a square right there too, so they're really solid. So what you'll need is your new pointe shoes. Aren't they so pretty? And you'll need elastic, a thick elastic. Usually at a dancewear store you can get this thicker elastic that's meant for the shoes. And your ribbons, which, as I said, I usually only cut them once. So get the ribbon there, and I just cut it in half. And for the purposes of not unraveling, and I'll cut them again later when they're tied around my foot so that they're right length, but you just take a lighter and just light the ends of the ribbons, just real gently, real quick like that, so that they don't fray, because these kind of ribbons, they just tend to fray up on you, and it's a nightmare. So I just cut my ribbons in half like that, and make sure you get a nice thick, big thick needle, like as thick as you can, because you're really going through thick pointe shoe material, and you want it to not jab you in the finger as much as possible. When I get my shoe on, I tie the drawstring ribbon up, and I only really need to leave about an inch or so for adjustments later if they get tighter or looser or something. Just cut them off. I always write a right and a left on my bottom of my pointe shoe, because just a little one, but just because, and your name, always write your names in your shoes somewhere, because when you get going, you want to make sure you know which foot is which. And I only cut my ribbons in 2. Some people cut them in 4, and then you have 4 different pieces, but if you leave it in one piece, then that part is anchored under your foot and it won't pop off. And take my elastic and make sure that it's nice and tight around there, and it's good, it's perfect. So, time to sew. My elastics I'll put right beside this back seam here, and I put mine on the outside because I just don't like to have that stuff on the inside, and once I sew it all the way down, then you won't see it anyways. It's not a distraction. So I just start right there, and you know, nobody looks at your pointe shoes too close up from the stage, so it's okay if they're not perfect. I wanted to show you this while I'm at it. You kind of have to grapple with it. There's a lot going on. You have to just hold it, but I do kind of a round, let's see with my thumb, around right there, because it sort of anchors it to your shoe rather than just back and forth. I kind of take it around, so it's like taking the end, see that? And all the way around the whole square of it. That way, I mean, this puppy is not coming off of there. And sometimes I'll also do an X inside the square for added security if it's a performance shoe. But it's pretty much not going anywhere if you sew around it, and I highly recommend not just going across the top there, but go ahead and go around. And if you really want them to never come off, then do that X in there. And I'm going to do the other side, on the other side of this seam here. You see that both sides are in a nice little square. Not perfect, and this isn't the strongest thread in the world, so I may go over it again just because I'm really particular about my shoes. I don't want to be worried about the elastics popping off while I'm dancing, because there's enough to think about when you're on pointe. But a lot of dancers will use non-wax dental floss as well, so it's nice and secure and it just is not coming off. So next I take my ribbons, and when you get the ribbons, pointe shoe ribbons, you will get it in one long strand, but I just cut it in half instead of fours. And then I just take it in half one more time, stick it right inside the shoe, and I put it right behind this inside seam. There's a seam right there on the inside of each side of the shoe, and I just put it right behind that seam, and then I sew it to each side in the same kind of square pattern, just on the inside. So you can see I'm doing like a square here. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect because nobody's really going to look at your shoes close up, but really it has to be perfect from far away. So for me, that means that you don't want the ribbons falling off, ever. You don't want them to ever be an issue. So that's why I do it this way. The elastics sewn in the two little squares, and then I have, turn it inside out so you can really see the square. This one kind of turned into a bit of a rectangle. And a square, and they're sewn right there underneath. And now we just have to get the ribbons the right length on my foot. And I always cross the inside of your foot over top, because it just pulls the, you want to be able to pull towards your turnout really. And these ribbons actually are almost the right length. I've got, you want to also always have them tied on the inside. It's just for a cleaner look. And I only really want a little bit, so I'm going to cut this one. Because you only really want enough to tuck in just a teensy bit, and then you can light on the end again to make sure that it doesn't come unraveled. And let it cool off for a second. And then I always tuck my ribbons in, like so. For performances, you can use knot keepers, or in the olden days, we used to sew our ribbons in. So there we have one done, and time for the other. All right, we're ready to roll. I've got them done. I just have to get them broken in now. Ta-da!